The debt collector surged up from the depths like a beast breaching the surface after decades of sleep. Her hull unbroken and shining with sea brine, it rose in an arc of gravity-defiant grace before crashing back into the waves with a force that rattled the sky. The crew was scattered, their limbs wrapped around rigging and rail, backs slammed against the deck and barrels. Water poured from every crevice of the ship, sloshing from broken lanterns and gushing from portholes. No one screamed or moved. They were all too stunned to know what they'd survived. Bootlicker clung to the mainmast, hair plastered to his face and his jaw slack. Mizzenmast hung from a snapped rope. He was blinking as though surfacing from a dream, and quarterdeck was already shouting below deck, barking orders with the desperate edge of someone pretending not to panic. In the center of it all, sprawled against the fractured planks near the helm, lay Alistair Morningstar, unmoving until a shout broke over the waves.
"Captain!"
Gunwale's hand gripped his shoulder, fingers digging in at an attempt at grounding his captain in the present.
"Alistair, Captain, come on now."
Alistair coughed seawater from his throat and pushed himself upright, blinking against the overcast sky. His voice rasped. It was still heavy, with residual static from whatever force had carried them.
"What happened?"
Gunwale helped him steady as he answered.
"No one knows. 1 minute we're drowning. The next we're standing. Or floating, rather."
He squinted at the horizon.
"But we've got no bearings. There's no stars. My compass is twitching like it's got a mind of its own."
Alistair got to his feet, his boots squishing against the soaked timber as he looked around. There was fog everywhere, thick enough to drown in. He turned to Mizzenmast, who'd already begun his silent climb before Alistair could speak.
"Out the crow's nest. Take Beck with you, and get eyes on our position. Report anything that moves."
Mizzenmast gave a curt nod as the seagull landed on his shoulder, and he vanished up the rigging, with Bootlicker right behind him. Below deck, quarterdeck appeared at the stairwell with water dripping from his chin and a soaked musket over one shoulder.
"We're afloat,"
he announced bitterly.
"Miracle and curse that. But we've got no dry powder left, not a flake. The lower decks are near flooded."
Alistair absorbed it all in silence, taking one thing in at a time. Mainsail approached with a gravity in his step, and he looked pale, not frightened but concerned.
"Kezia,"
he said simply.
"Is she all right?"
Alistair glanced back toward the door to his quarters. The weight returned to his chest.
"She's resting," he said. "Took a knock to the head, but her breathing steady."
Mainsail gave a half nod, kind of gesture that held 1,000 questions and no room to ask them. And then another shout.
"Captain!"
Bootlicker's voice high above cut the moment clean.
"You're going to want to see this!"
Alistair didn't wait. He climbed hand over hand, wood wet and stinging beneath his palms. His coat was dragged heavily with seawater. As he reached the top, Mizzenmast wordlessly passed him the spyglass, with his face as unreadable as ever. Alistair lifted it to his eye, and a breath caught in his throat. The rocks looked like they'd been clawed up from the ocean floor. They were jagged, crowned with frothing white sea foam, and beyond them there were mountains. Sharp, serrated peaks hidden just beneath the veil of fog. The shadows barely outlined in gray, but even unseen, they loomed. And around it all the sea fought harder than it should. The waves near those shores strained. They pulled and pushed as though unwilling to let anything near, or anything escape. Alistair lowered the spyglass slowly. "The breathless shores," he whispered. Bootlicker blinked beside him. "The what now?" "It wouldn't be on your charts," Alistair said, the words already heavier than he liked. "Not on any living map. Arturius once went seeking it.
Took a second crew to try. Lost half his men. One of his ships never came back.
Bootlicker's brow furrowed, his gears turning. So, this is real? Alistair nodded.
And we're here. Somehow.
He turned, looking down at the deck, and at his crew gathering below, their eyes speaking of questions and uncertainty. This wasn't chance. Below, the fog curled tighter around the ship, like a hand around the throat of fate. For a moment, just a breath, Alistair felt it all at once. The weight of that pendant on his neck, and the words in the water. The beacon. He gripped the rail tightly.
Am I meant for this?
He muttered to himself, voice lost to the fog. His hand rested on the edge of the crow's nest as his mind turned back to what he could no longer ignore. A shape drifted in the fog beyond the hull. It was half glimpse, half summons. It didn't need a form to be known. Alistair let out a breath softly, knowing he could no longer run away from what he'd been told.
Flint,
he called, without looking.
Regroup the crew. All hands on deck.
His skeptical first mate shifted behind him. Aye, Captain. As footsteps disappeared down the ladder, Alistair turned back towards the rail and saw it. The watery figure, formless and fluid, woven from debris and scattered moonlight. The mist spiraled where feet should be, and its head tilted in a curious fashion, as though knowing his very thoughts. Alistair's breath caught again as a flicker of recognition pulsed in his chest. The figure nodded once, and then vanished. The wind shifted as it dissolved. Below, the deck bustled, quiet voices, footsteps quick with purpose. Buckets rose from the hold, sloshing water over the sides. Quarterdeck and mainsail shouted back and forth across the bow as they secured the dampened rigging. Powder kegs that were found waterlogged were hauled and abandoned. The smell of wet wood and cold iron clung to everything. Gunwale moved between crates with charts under one arm and a compass in his other, scribbling corrections and muttering about bearings that refused to behave. Even his sure hands looked strained. And then, the captain's boot struck the deck. Alistair stepped down from the rigging, like gravity had to make room for him. As if the crew had been waiting for it, their gazes lifted, brief, cautious, and silent. And it was in that breath that Kezia emerged. She staggered out of Alistair's quarters, leaning heavily against the doorframe. Her hair hung in dripping strands over one eye, a hand pressed against her temple, as she blinked her way into the light. She took 2 steps towards the main deck and sat hard on the nearest crate, swallowing the nausea in her throat. And then she saw him. Alistair's eyes were already on her. He hadn't turned or moved, he was just watching. And for the first time since stepping aboard the debt collector, Kezia Capstan wanted to run. Because she saw it in him. Hurt. And worse, disappointment. She tried to stand, but her balance betrayed her. She sank back down and forced each breath to steady, though her heart tripped fast against her ribs as Alistair walked towards her. Each step rang hollow. He stopped before her, his coat still dripping, eyes cast downward. Not angry, but deep and measured. Empty in a way that frightened her more than any rage. Around them the ship was hushed. The clatter of tools softened, and even Bootlicker, halfway through tying back a line, paused mid-motion. This was not just a talk. This was a reckoning. Alistair's voice came low and level, like he was afraid it might break if he raised it too fast.
I'm not going to ask if you led them.
She blinked.
I know you did.
There was no accusation in his tone, just the weight of a sentence spoken over a grave.
I did not know. They were following me.
She began.
I thought I'd escaped.
Alistair didn't flinch.
I didn't.
She stopped, swallowed, and searched the deck for somewhere else to throw her eyes.
I didn't mean for them to find you.
Still silent. Still not good enough. She hated how his gaze didn't break. Hated that she had to keep explaining. Her voice pitched higher and less certain.
It's not as if they told me they'd let me go and I...
You just happened to drift into my path,
he said finally. His tone was soft but not gentle.
You put yourself between every man on this ship and the Regent's blade. For what?
I made a call.
She snapped, unable to hide her frustration.
I was trying to survive.
So were we,
he said, a tone of sadness flickering in his voice that hurt more than it should have.
I didn't ask to be trusted,
she said.
You picked me. You held out your hand like I was supposed to follow you into something noble. Like honor mattered to a pirate.
His expression didn't change, but his tone sharpened.
Are you ready to tell me the truth? All of it? Or were your eyes only ever a window to myths you've stolen and sold?
Kezia flinched. She wanted to scream or cry, vanish into thin air. But instead, she had to stand there with her pride broken in a million pieces. His disappointment wrapped around her heart like a chain, and she hated it. She hated how much it mattered. So she bit back the fear and snarled.
You dragged me along like I was already part of something. Don't act like your judgment wasn't already in motion when you gave me a pistol and told me to stand with your name behind mine.
Alistair's eyes flashed, and for the first time, he raised his voice, and it rolled over Kezia like thunder.
You think I gave you a place because I believed you were worthy?
The silence that followed his question crashed like a wave against her. The crew froze, and Kezia's mouth parted, but no words came. Alistair let out a slow breath.
I gave it because I believed you could be. I don't know whether I should throw you overboard or deliver you back to the Regent.
Kezia went still, and the wind pulled at her soaked hair like fingers.
But I won't choose for you, he said. You want to be so certain the stars don't shape you? Then shape yourself. Choose. Because I can't carry someone who doesn't have the strength to carry themselves.
She couldn't breathe. She had never been so cut open by someone. How was it possible to expose the core of someone's fears and the very nature, just to abandon them? Clearly, there was more pirate in this captain than Alistair even knew, or cared to admit. He turned his back to her and walked away. She rose, shakily, driven by something tangled between pride and heartbreak.
You think I chose this?
Her voice cracking.
You think any of this was about choice? Not everyone can bear the weight of believing they have some unreachable destiny, Morning Star.
He didn't stop.
Some of us have nothing, and we've always been nothing.
She shouted now, unmoored past pride.
What would you possibly know about never knowing who you are?
That stopped him in his tracks. Lightning webbed across the clouds as he slowly turned to face her. The pendant around his neck shimmered in the light, and he touched the symbol before looking her in the eye.
Everything.
Another crack of lightning split the sky, and she faltered, swallowing a lump in her throat. For a fleeting moment she believed him. He didn't know, if it was the tone of his voice or the passing moment of raw emotion in his eyes. But it made her pause. Her lips parted again, but what she meant to say went unspoken, as the sea suddenly erupted around them in violent waves. Frothing water slammed against the hull, almost as if it were guiding the ship and its crew to their fate. The ship lurched forward, drawn not by wind, but by a will.
Ready the sails!
Alistair roared.
Hard to starboard! Brace for surge!
Kezia clung to the rail with her eyes wide, and the debt collector moved.